Good afternoon and welcome into Two-Man Game here on ClavesOnline.com. I'm Matthew Rocc. That's Bob Ramsey, and we're here to talk a little St. Louis basketball. They have played 2 games of their conference schedule. We're going to talk a little about that, a big injury, and also preview Saturday's game against St. Bonaventure. And to do that, I got to talk to my man, Bob Ramsey. So, Rammer, how you doing today, sir?
Well, pretty good, Matt. It's an unusual spot here and maybe noisy. I'm at a convention center in Nashville, and it is well attended, and it's pretty crazy. So we'll do the best we can.
Absolutely. You're always doing different things. That's what we love about your Rammer. And so let's dive into a little bit of this conference schedule here with St. Louis. Obviously, they opened up on the road in both games. First of all, St. Joseph's, and then facing off against UMass. They get an 83-78 win over St. Joseph's. It was a tight one, leading 3 at half. Goes back and forth in the second half. They were eventually able to leg it out and get away with a win. Yuri Collins has 15 assists on the day. Gibson Jimerson and Javon Pickett both had 20-point games. So before we get into the loss that I think obviously is on everyone's mind from Wednesday, let's dive into what was a very good start on the road in conference play with a win in St. Joseph's.
Yeah, simply from the fact that you know how hard wins are generally. Road wins are tougher than that. So regardless of who you play, to be able to get a win on the road, you put that in the bank, and it is valuable as you move forward. St. Joe's was game, and the Billikens didn't play great, and you always, not always, but mostly credit the opposition to some of that. But the Billikens did enough to put that one away. Again, echoing Travis Ford, they didn't play great, but played well enough to win. There were some good moments in that game, and got just enough little contributions along the way from the bench that it gave them enough to put that one away.
And I think one thing we can talk about from St. Joseph's that through UMass and now the news, unfortunately, with Fred Thatch, it's going to be very pertinent. That was kind of the first splash of Larry Hughes Jr. that we've really gotten. And he came in made a shot, hit a 3. Then he had a bad almost turnover where he made a lazy pass from the wing to the top of the key that got tipped. But he looked great. And like you said, I think he was one of the guys who, other than the big numbers with Gibson and Javon, and I think it was huge, by the way, that Gibson was able to get that 22-point game considering the struggles he's had over these last 8 games especially. So like you said, not the best thing, but I think they did get some important games from some of the wings, moving forward.
Well, yeah, and I know you're a big David Allan Coe fan, so if I may steal some of his lyrics and just tell you that we ain't going to call Larry Hughes Jr. anymore. We all know what his daddy done before. Weighs close to 200 pounds and stands about 6'4". We ain't going to call Larry Hughes Jr. anymore. Thank you. Good night, everybody.
That was good. That was fantastic. Yeah, Raymer's going to sign off now because he's not going to be able to best that today. That was really good. And he's just Larry now. He's not Larry. He's not Junior. We're just going with Larry now.
Yep.
And that kind of moves us into some of the struggles from the UMass game. I went pretty deep into it yesterday on Twitter. If you don't want to listen to this and you'd rather read something, I'm going to say a lot of similar things I said in the tweet at Rocc ESPN ROCC. Essentially, that was a terrible defensive game, and I think the first 13 minutes might be the worst defense that this team has ever played under Travis Ford. It was bad in the first half, even though, and some people, are going to look at, 40 points allowed in the first and 50 points allowed in the second and say, how are you so much more disappointed in the first? Just watch it. It was bad. It was easy dribbles into the paint. It was mistakes. It was miscues. It was two guys running into the same zone. It was a problematic game defensively. And offensively, it wasn't much better. And obviously, you lose Fred Thatch, and there's the constant, question of Javonte Perkins if he's going to be able to go 25 minutes per game, or if he's going to have to be held back a little bit more. So you're held, and you don't have Javon Pickett, so you're held back a little bit lineup wise, but overall, it's just there were obvious problems with the defense that haven't been solved from day one.
Yeah, and Travis talked about it, and the numbers back it up. UMass, up to that point, not a good three-point shooting team.
No, not at all.
Marginal, not average, bad.
Yes.
And so how did they make all the threes? Well, to use Travis's word, we, meaning St. Louis U, let them get comfortable. When you're comfortable, you can make shots. That is really confounding.
That's the thing, is because, and I went through, you look at the shots they're taking, and they go 10 for 21 from three, and that's just so outsized from what they usually do. And you look at all the shots they're making, the four makes in the first half, they went 4-9, all of them wide open, just mistakes on defense that lead to wide open threes. And in the second half, they were closing out. They were kind of, they were heavily contested threes, but all of them were guys who at that point were feeling their game a little bit more.
Yeah.
Not Fernandez. Thompson. Thompson shoots 10% from three coming into the game. You smartly sag 4 feet off him, go under the screen, and he pulls up and hits a three at that moment. And you're shaking your head. It's one of those, what can go right kind of things.
Well, here's the thing. If you defend the way you're supposed to, they're still going to hit 4 or 5 because they're out there playing too. Maybe a guy pulls one out of his butt, like you point out. But if you defend them well all night, those crazy ones will be the only ones they get. The wide open, the nutty shot. You take 3 or 4 of those away, and anybody can see you obviously probably have the lead in the game. Here's the other thing. And again, it's happened 3 times now this season. Inexplicable. Literally inexplicable. You can't hit free throws. I can't explain it. And that should be a given on this team. You're confident in your rebounding, and you do very well most nights. But free throw shooting with this bunch, it should just be. You don't even think about it because they should be near perfect. And it's a really frustrating aspect of what you see in a box score from St. Louis.
Yeah, I pointed out yesterday, like I said, the losses to SIUE, Auburn, and now UMass, 48% from the line, 80% in every other game beyond that. It's a crazy discrepancy when you look at it that way. Another crazy discrepancy is when you break down the slump that Gibson Jimerson's in. That's why the 22-point game against St. Joseph's was so important to me and such a big thing, because he's now struggled. When they've lost, it's been because he struggled mightily from the field, especially from three-point land. And I went through it yesterday when we were in that Twitter thread, and I expressly went back to the UMass game again and the Boise State game and the SIUE game, and I charted every three that Gibson took, and there were 4 of them that were heavily contested. There were 10 of them that I had were light contests, and then 8 of them he was wide open, and he only goes 2 of 8 from the wide open ones, goes 1 of 10 from the other ones, and then 0 of 4 heavily contested. That is unlike him. Again, this is a guy who coming into this season had 300 college threes, and he was hitting them at a 41% clip. So it's kind of shocking to me what we've seen. Everyone talks about how they want him to shoot out of it. I'm completely with that. I think SLU has done a great job at getting him looks, and I think that's one thing that is more explainable, that if it starts breaking SLU's way, changes at least it's one step back to what we thought this team was going to look like at the beginning of the season, offensively.
I appreciate you bringing the numbers, because it backs up what you see with your eyes. But that's not the issue, because people can look at the stats. Why?
Yeah.
How do you take a guy who, coming into December of this year, was one of the best three-point shooters in the history of the program? What's happening? It makes 0 sense.
Yeah.
I'll give you 2 half-cocked possibilities. And I'm really soft pedaling this because I can't figure it out. I'm trying to. 1, it appears that the guy's got dead legs. Now, then you go to, well, why is that? I don't have an explanation for that. But I see he's also had, you may have this number, the patented baseline drive, back cut, dime drop from Uri to Gibson. In the last few games, he's had at least 3, maybe as many as 5 blocked.
Yep.
And I think it's because he's not getting to the rim. Again, to perhaps support my dead leg theory. Don't know. The other thing is, and I admit this is a reach, and I want to offer an apology before I even verbalize it to Gibson, to the staff, and Gibson's family. Could he have some sort of version of senioritis and focus not quite be there? That's a horrible thing to say about a terrific kid and a guy who's been a great player. But I'm just trying to understand why. Do you see what I'm saying?
I do. And the reason why I'm looking down is because when I was charting his threes last night, I actually was writing down where he was missing them. Because I know you mentioned a couple shows ago whether or not I was paying attention to where he was missing them. And so through the 22 threes he took at Boise State, SIUE, and the UMass games, where, again, he went 3 for 22 in those games. By my count, I have him missing off the front rim 8 times.
Yeah.
Out of 22. It's 19 misses. So 8 of his 19 misses, I have him going off the front rim. So I'm with you on that one. I think it's I'm not a shot doctor, but just like mechanical basics, he misses shots when he doesn't square up his feet or his shoulders. That's the other thing. I mean, when the ones where he's you can go to the Drake game and the where he missed a couple of wide open threes because he came off a screen hard and just wasn't really that set in the air when he took his shot. And I think that's a couple of them is just. But I mean, a lot of these ones are wide open, feet set kind of things, and so he's squared up on those ones. And those in these games more especially, it's the issue that you're wondering about. Like I said, I don't know what it is, but I did have you in mind when I was tracking it because of that.
One more thing, and it sounds like I'm throwing stones, and I'm really not, because I love the kid and I wanted to have a great finish to his senior year, and but I hearken back to the late '90s when the Billikens had a junior center who was absolutely dominant. His name was Ian Voyoukas, and he came back his senior year, but he frittered it away. And I don't know that he had the quick enough feet to ever play in the league. And he ended up playing professionally in Greece, his home country, and did fine. And he's a terrific young man, but he had, again, what I'll label, and it's a broad category, senioritis the summer before, and it showed that he wasn't ready. Now, here's why that probably doesn't apply to Gibson, because in November and early December, he looked like the same guy, right?
Yeah.
He looked like the same guy we are. So I'm throwing it out there and then sort of dismissing it and going back to why does he have dead legs?
Yeah, I think that's a fair question. And obviously it's going to be a big question through a couple of these games. Gibson, Jimerson, all the starters, the guys on the bench, they're going to have to step up because SLU's lost a huge player. If you were able to hear some of the comments that Travis Ford made before practice today, I think you could argue that they lost the heart of the team. Because Travis was absolutely broken up today when we talked to him before the practice. I mean, absolutely shattered for a guy like Fred. He said he was the one who told Fred yesterday. He said, I took it much worse than Fred did. He talked about how he's sitting up last night thinking about how much it hurts for a guy who really has had one clean year. He said his freshman year is his only carefree year. Every other year, marred by injury, marred by bad health, marred by things he's been fighting through. And every time he was the consummate professional, he was the consummate Billiken. And then Stu Durando at Post-Dispatch pointed out to me today that Fred Thatch signed his junior year in high school, which was Travis Ford's first year at SLU. This is a guy who's been with him and has been a vision for his team the entire time. And this is a guy in his 7th year as a coach. That's incredible when you think about it. And really, it makes the emotion that Travis showed today, it makes a lot more sense when you think about how his entire SLU journey, Fred Thatch has been there. And you can tell how close they've been and how much it really did hurt him to have to break that news to Fred.
Here's another one for you. Well, I'll give you two things. First of all, going back 2 years, they talked about Fred maybe playing some point, and you look at him and you go, that's not a point guard. And he would tell you, I'm not really a point guard. Say, well, why are you talking about playing with point as a backup to Yuri? And Travis, without equivocation, says, nobody in the team knows the offense better than Fred Thatch.
Yep.
Valedictorian at his high school. He's going to be, well, if he wants to, he'll have a doctorate coming out of SLU.
Yeah, I think he's finishing up his second master's degree.
The only reason I'm not, and I mean this sincerely, folks, the only reason I'm not literally crying about it is because Fred Thatch's graph on his life is almost a straight up skyrocket. He's going to be one of the most successful people and have a marvelous life. And I love the guy, and I'm really proud of him. This is okay. You know, he's been in it. He gave it his all, and now it's over. It's on to the next thing for him.
Yeah, and a lot of people, if you didn't know, Fred had already talked about how he was going to forgo the last year of eligibility. He had to move on from basketball, and obviously here with the injury, Fred Thatch's time as a basketball player at St. Louis is finished, and obviously what an incredible career he had. Starting from his freshman year when they made that tournament run, through him playing his heart out and almost getting them back in that game against UMass. An incredible career from Fred Thatch. He's gonna do incredible things. That's like you said, that's the only reason that you can kind of feel okay about the moment is because he's going to do special things. And speaking of that, let's just talk really quickly. This means that people have to step up. We saw Kellen Thames really for the first extended time because of the injury. And I think Larry Hughes Jr., again, the stretch he had in the UMass game was incredible. I mean, they put him in at point guard. He brought the offense up. He initiated it. He finished a couple plays. He pulled up for a three and hit it. And then he was doing a full court press on the point guard after he did that. I mean, for him to be built, for him to carry it up and initiate the offense and then go straight into a press on their ball handler right out of the gate as a walk-on freshman, that's unbelievable. Larry has completely shocked me. And at this point, I have no idea what to expect. Sky's the limit as far as I'm concerned with what he's going to do because the steals, the threes, the ball handling, everything has been completely on point right out of the gate for Larry.
I don't know how the rest of this season will finish for him. He'll end up almost certainly getting 5 to 7 minutes a night at point guard, probably. Mm-hmm. Travis hasn't declared that, but that's pretty obvious. It's probably what will happen. But I really think he's the next great two guard for St. Louis. The kid can really shoot it. And so I think it's fair to call him a combo guard at this point out of necessity for the rest of the season. But I really think he's going to have a really nice future with that sweet jump shot. It's going to be good.
Absolutely. And, right out of the gate, they're going to have to be challenged a little bit. Conference game number 3 is against the St. Bonaventure Bonnies, who, if this was the first game of the conference schedule against the Bonnies, my breakdown and my comments would be completely different because they have taken 52 threes and scored an average of 78 points in their first 2 games, which are, suffice it to say, higher than their average in the non-conference schedule. The Bonnies really struggled. Obviously, Mark Schmidt there for, I think, year 15, and he's got a transfer-heavy class, and they're starting to really kind of feel their stride. Daryl Banks from St. Peter's, has gone to a bigger conference and is scoring 17 points per game. Chad Venning's a big, 6'10", 280 pounds. I'm worried about how that matchup's going to go for St. Louis. Again, 2 weeks ago, it's a completely different podcast talking about the Bonnies. They've shocked me here to start the conference schedule, Rammer.
Well, they beat the hell out of UMass. Yes, and you saw that was in Olean. to be fair, but they still beat the hell out of them, and you saw what UMass did to SLU. So
Yes, sir.
think about that on your way to Chaffetz on Saturday at 3 o'clock. The other thing is Mark Schmidt is just so good. He, I don't know what kind of deal he made with the devil that he had to serve time in the purgatory that is called Olean, New York. You know, they made some kind of deal. Hey, make me the best coach in the country. And then okay. And then he finds himself in Olean, New York. So be careful when you make that deal with the devil. That it's always in the details, right? Okay, I'm being facetious, of course. But Schmidt could probably write a ticket almost anywhere in the Northeast, and probably most places in America. Certainly could be in a Big 6 plus American, Big 7 plus probably Mountain. He could probably go to any of the top 10 leagues in the country if he wanted to. But he's carved out his niche in Olean, New York, and except when he beats my team, he's a pleasure to watch.
And I shorted him by a year. My apologies to Coach Schmidt. It's actually year 16 with St. Bonaventure there. And again, I think this is going to be a tough matchup for SLU just because the one thing that the Bonnies did well in non-conference and the thing that they kind of jacked up here in the conference schedule is they shoot threes very well. It's the only offensive stat they're anywhere close to a top 100 team. In the conference schedule, their rate was a lot lower. But like I said, they've come out the gate taking 52 threes, which is a bigger combination in a 2-game span than they have at any other point in the season. So the rate's jacked up. And here's the thing. That's one of the weird things about this St. Louis season is that every team seems to have their best 3-point shooting game against the Billikens.
Not a coincidence.
Exactly. Not a coincidence. So I think that's going to be interesting. And again, when you talk about the way that basketball goes now, Francis Okoro, Jake Forrester are perfect guys for this style. Sometimes you got to spread out a little bit. Sometimes you got to work from outside the paint. Chad Venning is a monster. Again, 280 pounds. I'm legitimately wondering how that paint battle is going to go. Francis, get a couple extra curls in tonight. It's going to be a rough battle on Saturday.
Well, all right, and I'll counter it because I don't know how it's going to go either. Is that kid quick enough? Is he as quick as Franco? Is he as good an athlete? I don't know. Yeah. I do know this. I don't want to give him the ball and expect him to do something good with it offensively 20 feet from the basket.
Yeah, okay. I was in the car for a little bit, and I heard you and Earl talk about that. That was such a big bugaboo I had with the UMass game, and is they start the pick and roll and they give Franco the ball at like the free throw line or deeper, and it's like, well, what do you want him to do with that? It's not going to go well anytime you do that. And yeah, and then every time you either hit him or Forrester actually on the roll in the paint, they were finishing through 2 or 3 guys. I mean, that was an interesting thing. Also, I pointed out again on Twitter, and I mentioned here on the podcast, Iona, Maryland, Boise State, they all did it. You watch it again, Rammer. There's nobody in the paint. As soon as the SLU ball handlers in the paint, it's just a mob of guys. Just 4 guys just in them on right them. And the way I put it on my tweet is this team. It's not a bad passing team. This is a skilled basketball team. I really believe that. So you ask these guys to make a pass, even like a skip pass inside of the play, they'll make it. But I think it's clearly showing that a lot of these guys outside of Yuri, if you blitz them and show them something they're not used to, they're not necessarily the best at improvising that pass, even if it is a relatively easy one. You saw Jake Forrester finally hit one late in the UMass game where he caught it on the short roll, stopped, everybody crashed, and he hit, I think it was Fred Thatch actually before his injury, in the corner, between the 2 injuries actually, in the corner, and he hit a 3. That's not a play that SLU has made consistently, but teams keep giving them that. If they can break a team like Bonnie's and make that pass, they're going to get 90 points and they're going to run like we thought they were supposed to.
Well, 2 things. Make the pass, but you can do anything you want offensively if you make shots. I'm going to circle back to where we started the show. This is supposed to be the best shooting team since Claggett, Highmark, and Waldman, right? 30 years ago, supposed to be. And it's the numbers don't lie. I don't have it in front of me. What are they shooting? 31% from three now?
I believe so, yeah.
Look, I can't sugarcoat it. That's not good shooting. You're not a good shooting team, and you were supposed to be great, and that's a problem.
Yeah, it's 32%, which is 272nd in the nation.
Yeah, and I don't even need the national comparisons.
Yeah.
You got to make 1 out of 3. You got to, or you're not good. And the shooters have got to be better if this team has any chance of doing damage. The shooters just got to make shots. Now, woe is us? Well, not necessarily. The possibilities, the upside of Parker and Hughes to go with the other guys that you already have, if those two guys could come off the bench and give you a 3-point lift, maybe that allows the veterans who haven't been making shots, gives them time to figure it out. So that's my hopeful message from this podcast.
Absolutely. And really quickly, your quick thoughts, because we've been talking a lot about Sincere Parker being a bigger part of the offense, obviously because of Javon Pickett's injury, illness, and then the injury to Fred Thatch. We saw more Sincere Parker. They were down, and so he had a little bit, I think, more of a green light to command the offense and take his shot. What did you think from what we've seen so far, the biggest glimpse of Sincere Parker as a Billiken?
Well, we talked about it as a theory that he wasn't producing in short little bursts, but we speculated that if he got a volume of minutes and kind of got into the flow of the game, he'd produce. He played 25 minutes. He had a great game. You know, it's funny. If the other guys wouldn't have been hurt, would this have occurred? You know, I don't know the answers to those things, and I can't criticize what has happened when you're in the moment. You're trying to make a play. You're trying to win a game. So it's just is what it is. But it appears that our thoughts that if you're going to get production from Sincere Parker, you got to give him minutes.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see how the minutes distribution. The plan, Travis said today, was always, they'd always go into the game wanting to get Fred Thatch 30 minutes off the bench. So right out of the gate in the team, and in the coaches meeting, that's 30 minutes they got a plan to put elsewhere. So it's going to be interesting right out of the gate, game one, who we're going to see. Obviously I expect more Sincere Parker. I expect more Kellen Thames to a point. I expect more Larry to a point. If there's anybody beyond that, it'll be interesting to see if he goes that deep. All I know is Bonnies are a tougher game, like I said, than they were maybe 10 days ago. So Saturday is going to be interesting. You can still get your tickets. You can still come on out to the game against the Bonnies. It's a 3 p.m. tip-off, right?
3 o'clock at Chaffetz Arena.
3 o'clock tip-off at Chaffetz Arena. Bob Ramsey will be there. I'll be there. And we'll be talking more two-man game and more basketball on another episode of Two-Man Game later on. Before we go, really quickly, though, Rammer, tell everybody about Royal Banks of Missouri.
Royal Banks of Missouri, 60 years giving you the best service in the business. St. Louis proper, Granite and Jerseyville on the east side, St. Charles, and 3 newer branches in the last year, 3 branches in Northeast Missouri. And each and every one of them says Royal Banks, where better service means better banking.
Awesome. Rammer, you have a great rest of your day. We will talk to you later on Two-Man Game and on Claves Online.
As one of St. Louis's fastest growing companies and largest private companies, St. Louis Acura is proud to serve you and remains committed to becoming better than ever for you. As new Acuras become more available every day, we are not backing down from selling 100% more quality pre-owned vehicles than ever before. We want customers that appreciate our friendly, outgoing team and our award-winning service because at St. Louis Acura, we are better than ever for you.